Now there are some other things that are kind of hard, but not really. Well, they kind of add up, like everyday issues, like where to get your shoes or clothes that fit, or just things dealing with communication. So everyday stuff that really would be so simple back in the States, but you kind of take for granted until you live abroad, and then you're like, oh shit, I can't do this without somebody's help. Or even if you speak some Korean, like I can speak enough Korean, but not technical Korean. I'm not the kind of person that likes to ask for help from anyone, but I find myself asking my girlfriend for help a lot, and I think it annoys her sometimes. And she's like, "You can do it. You speak some Korean." I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't speak that level of Korean, so, and I don't have that kind of vocabulary to do so." Doctors, if you go to a small clinic, you might have a problem, but if you go to like a big hospital, usually they have someone who speaks English, and that shouldn't be a problem. But like for other stuff, like arguing with like the phone companies or getting your internet set up or just this and that and small things, and it does become kind of a problem, and it builds up over time. I mean, I have my I hate Korea days, and I'm sure every expat in Korea has those days. And I may not have told you guys, but I have a blog post about some shit that's been going down in my life for like the past few months. Actually, all of last semester, which would explain why I have such a negative attitude lately. But if you check on the link below, it's a blog post about what's been going on in my life, and it's about a coworker that's making my life hell. She's a total bitch, I'm not gonna lie. But you guys can read about it. It's password protected, so the password is 5630. If you want to read about it, no. But it would explain a lot about me and what's going on in my life. But I think something that always infuriates me, and even though I try to be more understanding of it, are the double standards. They're not really enforced. Actually, they're not enforced if you're Korean, but when it comes to foreigners, they really seem to be hard asses about it. Like an example, I was reading an article online, and well, you see when you go to the beaches, you see a lot of some girls in bikinis, but most of the time Koreans just wear shirts. Anyways, there's a lot of photographers, lots of Korean photographers with the long lenses, but police just kind of ignore them, and they just arrest like the foreigners with long lenses or even just a DSLR camera. So, or another example is things like jaywalking. I've seen it a few times. Like I see Koreans jaywalking all the time, but I saw a foreigner jaywalking near Insadong the other day, and the police stopped them. I don't know if they fined him or anything, but it's Korean police just kind of turn a blind eye to what Koreans do, and when it comes to foreigners, like, oh, there's a big bad boogeyman. So I'm not really trusting of them. But then again, I'm not even trusting of American police, you know, because I'm a minority. Which brings me to another point, really. I mean, if you're a minority, some of these things might not really bug you so much because you're probably used to them in the States. And to my white friends, yeah, you're probably used to not dealing with things like discrimination and racism and that kind of stuff. So I've seen a lot of my other white friends kind of like they can't take it. Like they come to Korea, they're here for a while, they love it, they go through a honeymoon period, and they start getting fed up with being treated like not being at the top of the chain anymore, you know. But yeah, so if you're a minority, that kind of stuff doesn't phase you so much. But you know, if you're white, you might kind of go berserk and shoot up a postal office or something. I don't know what you guys do. No, just kidding. Don't hate, don't subscribe, don't unsubscribe. But anyways, actually Americans or Western people are treated pretty well in general. I mean, you do have those instances of discrimination, but overall, it's not as bad as like Southeast Asians or people of much darker skin. They really, I don't know, it's kind of disgusting the way I see them getting treated sometimes. And I remember one time I was in Dongdaemun, and this couple was asking for directions in the Korean ask for directions boxes, and they just kind of shoot them away and tell them to go away. And that was really f***ed up because the whole purpose of that booth is to help tourists. And anyways, they asked me for directions, and I think they thought I was Southeast Asian or something. I don't know why they would think that. But I told them in English, because they did speak English, and they spoke it pretty well, how to get to their destination. And they were quite grateful. But yeah, I mean, they're people from the Philippines, people from like Vietnam, Southeast Asia, Cambodia, blah blah blah, they get kind of, yeah, they get the wrong end of the stick. But if you happen to be dark skinned and you're from America, that's different. You know, once they find out how to treat you, then things change. And for women, I think, well, this is a male dominated society. I mean, if it's changing, it's changing pretty damn slow. But I can't really speak for women because I'm not one, obviously. But I've heard enough from my friends about their little stories and about how, you know what, I should just leave that video for female bloggers to talk about, because I am in no way should not talk about something that's not about me. But yeah, this is a male dominated society, and women are treated a little bit like I said, with double standards. Like men can do pretty much whatever the hell they want. Before, even now, if women get raped, they kind of look down on the woman, like it's her fault for dressing so sexy, or she provoked him by dressing like that, and the man was just like drunk or something, and he's a victim. Or actually, there's a lot of stories about where women get raped, and she would go, if she goes to the police would not help her, or like the police would, or like the family from the man that raped her would come after her, and they'd throw like a whole online campaign to smear her name and cause her like to leave the country or something, because according to their family, she is hurting the son's reputation. Yeah, leave that to the female bloggers. They can tell you more about that. Another thing you really have to overcome is the loneliness. The loneliness of being in another country for whatever amount of time. And what made it hard at first, what made it really hard was making Korean friends. Because like at first, or maybe you guys remember from one of my earlier videos, I said you have to be introduced by other people. And Koreans just kind of freak out when they just kind of freely mingle with each other. So the best thing is really to join clubs, activities. I took dancing classes for like 2 months. I was like the only guy in a room with girls that dressed, if they did dress. Let's just leave it at that. And it was great. I'm not gonna lie. But you can use online like conversation exchange websites. You can go to Language Cast. You go out a lot. You'll meet people. You know, you'll make friends that way. But just going up to someone and talking to them is kind of like just freaks them out, basically. So keep yourself busy, get a hobby, and really you'll have a good time here. Travel a lot. A big thing was, for me at least, was giving up my pride and power, because you know I'm young, and Korea is more like a hierarchical society where the older person is pretty much always right, even though they're obviously not right. And they really do some stupid shit sometimes. Like, I know they're older, but they don't act like mature people sometimes. Well, some people. But being the underling that I am, I have to accept whatever they say. And really, that pisses me off a lot, because there's many times where I know the person is lying to my face or to someone else, like they're talking about you, and they're saying some bullshit thing to cover their asses. And really, you just gotta go with the flow. I mean, what can you do? What can you say? If you gotta really swallow your pride, and that in itself is really, really hard. At least for me. I don't know about you guys, but I have many friends who I talk to about this kind of stuff online from the States, and be like, oh, if I was there, I would just tell them blah, 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 and in their face. And I'm like, oh, you don't understand. It's a different culture. You know, you can't just do that. And they're like, yes, I can. Yeah, you can, but it's going to have consequences, especially if it's coworkers and you have to deal with them like every day, or they sit next to you. And really, it's complicated. So you kind of, if you're here, I'm here. I try to follow the culture as much as I can. Obviously, I can't do everything Korean, but some things I feel very strong about that I won't give up. And people will be like, oh, you're in Korea, you should do things the Korean way. And I'd be like, well, I do as much things as I can the Korean way, but you should also be more understanding of my culture and respect it. Because Korea really tries to promote a multicultural country, but it's more like a multiracial country. I mentioned that before. And they're not very tolerant about other cultures as much as they try to portray that. So that really sucks. People come and go. but you get used to seeing a lot of the people that you know and that you meet and that you enjoy being around. They leave. So friendships are kind of temporary, and that's a really sad thing. I mean, I have some good friends that are Koreans here, but for the most part, I know that most people that I meet are going to leave someday. As for myself, I don't know, but it's a painful realization. If you're one of those people that just comes here for a year or two, then it's fine. But if you're gonna be here for a long time, then you're going to get kind of hardened by that. And really, lastly, I want to say that Korean problems are not your problems, but you're living in this country, and as an expat, we like to talk about these problems, especially like political stuff. My girlfriend gets mad though. She's like, "Why do you care? It's Korean problem." I'm like, "Oh, it's not exactly always a Korean problem, because this kind of things also affect the expat community, especially us living here." So that whole attitude of you're not Korean, why you talk about Korean problems, or why are you interested in them? I'm like, well, I live here, obviously, just as much as Koreans are interested in hearing news about America, you know. So yeah, so that's my video about problems for living in Korea. I'm going to sell my camera today, but I'm going to buy a 5D Mark III finally in like 2 weeks. So you guys can expect to see more about that. And yeah, thanks for watching my videos. Like the Facebook page, and I would appreciate if you guys discussed on the forum, because you know I want to see more activity going on there. But anyways, I'm going to be on Arirang TV. I'm on vacation, so I'm gonna be like pretty much almost 2 weeks shooting with them about Korean food, and I'm gonna make a video about that later on too. So I'll see you guys around. You guys would either love or hate. Love because you don't have to go to work, or hate because you're gonna be there for 8 hours if you're not there early. So I suggest going really, really early. Take all your documents.